Okay, everybody, welcome in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for taking the time, and we appreciate your coming this evening, and we apologize for the delay in starting. Welcome for everybody who is from far and near. We are now at our back to Shul night. We're used to back to school nights, but not a back to Shul night. And the reason this year this is so critical is because there's so many differences. There's so many things which are going to be different this year. Ironically speaking, the year 5781 Tafshin Pei Aleph is a year which we need to actually spend more time davening. We know that certainly looking back on the previous year, it was a very complex year in many ways. And all of that was nigzar, all of that was part of last Rosh Hashanah. As we move into Tafshin Pei Aleph, this is critically the year where we should be really spending a lot more time davening and putting our efforts into our spiritual pursuits. This should be in fact a good and healthy year. However, we are confronted with a number of challenges, and we're going to deal with those challenges carefully. And that is that we also want to ensure, at the same time, as much as we want to be able to be davening and being involved, we also want at the same time to ensure that our shul on Rosh Hashanah, when everybody and so many people are going to be coming out, is going to be a time where it is safe for one and all to join us. Unlike a regular Shabbos, where people who perhaps would choose to daven at home, would daven at home, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, so many more people are going to be coming. People who perhaps are more vulnerable, perhaps people in whatever respect, whether it be health, whether it be age, whatever the concern a person may have is this, we want to make sure that Shul is going to be that place. So the advice that we've been given is that there are three matrices that matter when it comes to this. One is proximity, exposure, and time. Those are three things that we're going to be working with. Proximity means how much close we are to each other. Exposure, how exposed we are to one another, and the amount of time we spend together. What we're going to try to do is we're going to try to work with each three of those matrices in order to be able to ensure that our shul this year will not just be a place where our tefillah is strong, but it will also be a place which is going to be a place which is safe. So let's start at the very beginning. We're going to try to look at a little bit of each of those three and deal with some of the frequently asked questions in each of those. I do want to make mention that please do use the chat feature to put questions in. We'll try to get to some of them as we go through, but we're going to please just wait and see as well. There are going to be lots of questions which are going to be addressed as we go along. So let's start. In terms of the called proximity. So let's get down to logistics. We'll talk about how that has impacted us. So on a regular year, on any given year, on a regular basis, in the Young Israel Lawrence-Cedarhurst, we are blessed to be seating in regularly three sanctuaries, 13 to 1,400 people. That is Baruch Hashem in the main shul, in the Glakelnik Beis Medrash, in the ballroom. Together we seat a capacity of 13 to 1,400 people. Obviously, with proximity as it is these days, we simply do not have that possibility. When we're dealing with spaces between people from different families, that is simply not a reality. So this year, Baruch Hashem, owing to the incredible amount of effort, logistically speaking, owing to many people in our office and many volunteers, we are now actually having 8 different minyanim, and we are seating up to 900 people. Just to understand what this is looking like, roughly around 900 including all our locations. Where are those locations? The locations look like, let's get down to some of the questions so we can see where we're at. So where are the locations? The locations are going to be in our main shul, the Glakelnik Beis Medrash, the ballroom, and the youth center. Those are 4 indoor locations, and we have 2 massive tents outside, as can be seen. Those are essentially 6 campus locations, 4 indoors, 2 outdoors. In addition, we want to also thank the members of the community who came forward and wanted to partner with the shul and offer their space, their ground, to be part of the shul extension. So we have 2 satellites, one on Dogwood, which we'll call Yilk West, and we have one on Bayberry, which is going to be Yilk South. So putting that all together, we have 8 locations in total. And of those 8 locations, 4 inside, 4 outside. How do we arrive at the division of outside and inside? Based on the seating requests. So people wanted to be outside or outside, people wanted to be inside or inside. I want to underscore the impact of how significant that is. Why is it 8 locations? We took the numbers, and there's no linear way of seating. So just for a moment, just to thank Doba Isaacs, and Shavi Ogorik, who spent, every single day for the last 2 weeks here in the shul working on this, working with everybody's requests to enable and to ensure that everybody had the opportunity of finding a seat as best is possible for them. How does it work? So as opposed to a regular where we could just seat people on the same bench and the same pews, that's not possible this year. So there needs to be bubbles around each family. Indoors, we're working with a 6-foot bubble, which means to say, let's say there's a family of 5, that family of 5 will be in one area, and around them will be a 6-foot gap. Now, obviously, that means to say that every change changes the constellation of seats. Outside, we're working with a smaller bubble, 4.5-foot bubble, that actually the recommendations now are 3 feet. We're doing more than that. We're doing the 4.5 feet bubble around each unit of families, which enables us to be able to fit all the people inside and outside safely, so that people are only sitting directly and immediately with their family units. So the question then becomes is what happens if I need the restroom? So the recommendation Dr. Glatcher sent out in his weekly report this week, that the recommendation generally speaking is for people to use the restroom before they come to Shul and to use it as infrequently as possible at Shul, but all the restrooms certainly will be open. And of course, it is recommended that people obviously you act cleanly and use hand sanitizer before and after they use the restroom. But the restrooms will be operational in all the Shul campuses. When it comes to the extended campuses, the people who are davening there are going to be dealing specifically with their hosts in order to understand the bathroom arrangements. What about the night minyan? So regularly at the Shul, we would have everybody in the main Shul. That's not going to be possible this year. So what we're going to be attempting to do, we do not have a sign up for this, but we're going to have 2 Batei Medrash open, and we're going to have the outdoors open. So we're going to have 3 minyanim, which allow the crowd to disperse sufficiently with the specific seats, with the areas of seats that people are going to be sitting responsibly distant from one another. Then ultimately that will provide enough space, hopefully, for the crowds. What if I don't have a machzor? So as is on a regular year, the Shul does provide over 200 machzorim that they've had. And Baruch Hashem this year, as you've noticed in the emails, the Shul has acquired and had sponsorship from very many kind people in our Shul who have gone out of their way to sponsor the machzorim, which will be available, new art scrolls and Korah machzors, which will be available at all locations. Having said that, that still is around a total of 450 plus machzorim, so that obviously does not cover everyone, and people are recommended to bring their own, whether for convenience, if they feel that they prefer to use their own machzorim, but there will be machzorim available in the Shul. Who will be the Balei Tefillah? Important question when it comes to this year is if you did the maths correctly, then for 8 locations, that means to say that if we're having separate Balei Tefillah, we're talking about 16, Baal Shachris and Baal Musaf. That's a lot of Balei Tefillah. So we first of all thank the regulars who are davening, those who have been with us and have served the community for so many years in distinction. And this year also we are going to be having new people joining the ranks. People from outside, let's say Balei Tefillah from outside, but also our own who have tried and spent now weeks and months training to do their service to our community as representing us as Balei Tefillah. Having said that, it's important just to remember that therefore the tone of perspective as one walks out of davening should be is, I appreciate that these people gave of their own personal and professional time to be able to train, to be able to go out of their way to do this. There are going to be new Balei Tzkiya this year, have been practicing for weeks and weeks on end. And this is something which we should express a tone of appreciation for those among us who have stepped up to this very important and significant role of leadership. Let's at this point, I just want to ask, Marvin really has taken an incredible lead. If you've seen the tents that have been going up, the facilities, the gloves, the hand sanitizers, all the incredible amount of stuff, that does not happen alone, does not happen easily. Tents are, as anybody who's been setting up a simcha knows, tents are in very short call today and short order, and we, Baruch Hashem, have created our own tent. We've added to it 2 huge tents and then a few satellite tents as well. We have Wi-Fi in our circle for the Zoom in. There's a lot going on. I want to thank Marvin, I want to thank Becky, all the people on the arranging operations side of things. And just at this point in time, just Marvin, is there anything that you want to add? If you're in here in the room, is there anything you would like to add to what we've said yet?
The only thing I want to say actually is I want to thank the membership for their understanding, because I know that, as you mentioned, that both Chevy and Joe are working very hard, but there's a corollary to that, and that is, I think the membership has a very good idea of what's going through, and they're exhibiting a tremendous amount of patience and awareness of what's involved, and the people are not being as demanding as perhaps they might have been in the past.
So thank you, Marvin. And really just, Marvin works 24/7 on this. This is really no small operation. There's no instruction manuals and things keep changing. And we really, really appreciate all the incredible effort that goes in behind the scenes to ensure that our shul is operational from 5:50 in the morning all the way till 10:30 at night and is constantly a place where we can feel safe and have a reliable place to daven. Let's move into the seating side of things. Just a few questions. I actually addressed some of these beforehand. How will seating be working? I mentioned this beforehand, is that we're going to have family units with 6-foot bubbles around them internally, and we're going to have outside family units with 4.5 foot bubbles outside in our tents. Can I sit with my family? The answer is absolutely yes. If you signed up as a family, Doba and Chevy and all the people who've been working, Marvin, Becky, have been working on this to ensure that the family is going to be together, which also means that spouses will be in the same location, right? So it's not going to be that a spouse will be in a different location as their spouse. This is really important, but it took an incredible amount of work to gather that apart. How will I find my seat? This is a critical question, and I know that a lot of people are concerned right now. Where will my seat be? Will it be an alright seat for me? Will I be able to hear? Will I feel safe enough? So just in terms of expectation, we're now 1 week and 2 days away from Rosh Hashanah, essentially, and that's coming up terrifyingly close. But we will be sending out an email at some point next week with the specific grids of what the seating will look like. And when one comes to every base medrash, there will be the numbers along the front, along each row, and then the columns will be marked with letters. So therefore, a person will be able to know based on where they are. Every room, of course, will have outside of it, they will have the markings of what the board is with the people's seats. And in addition, in any room which does not have necessarily let's say the pews or the Glak Gelnik or the main shul, there are going to be tags attached to every chair with the name of that family, so it makes it easier because the rows are harder to see when they're staggered in such a way. As you can imagine, this is more difficult than three-dimensional puzzles that Mensa has been giving out, and this really requires an incredible amount of work and shifting every time something changes. Will I get my permanent seat? We're in our shul very proud that we've had many people who've invested in permanent seats in our shul. Unfortunately, this year, owing to what we're dealing with, it is not going to be possible for people to get their permanent seats, and we ask for people's forbearance and understanding under these martial laws. This is what we're trying the very best. You know, unfortunately, in other places in LA, shuls are being shut down now for Yom Rayim. We're trying the very best we can, staying open to do the very best we can under the circumstances. We appreciate everybody's understanding. If I always daven in the main shul, can I at least be guaranteed a seat in that room? Just to give you a sense of the numbers of what that looks like, our main shul seats legally 596. With social distancing, we're looking at around just over 100 or so. So we're talking about a sixth or so of its capacity. It's simply not possible for the other 5-6 of those people to be in that room on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And we ask that people are appreciative of the incredible amount of work, because it's not just about where people used to be, but it's also about the Baalei Tefillah and their families, the Baalei Kriya and their families, the Baalei Tekiah and their families, the Divrei Torah, the Rabbonim and their families. So there's a lot of different moving parts which also need to be guaranteed as in terms of the constellation of seats as well. Can I move around? So let's just come back to that for a moment. Can I move around? Answer is unfortunately not. Now, one aspect of moving around means to say from base medrash to base medrash. No, the seats are very specific. But even internally, even in one location, to move around, because everything is very tightly stacked, everything has been very, very carefully choreographed, it is going to make other people feel uncomfortable if a person's moving around. I mean, you say, if we have these gaps, these bubbles between different family units, and somebody's moving around and is hanging out and schmoozing, there are going to be people who are going to feel vulnerable, are going to feel upset that you're in their space, especially seeing as there are people coming out for the first time back to shul for Rosh Hashanah. We ask that if a person needs it's a long time to sit, if a person does need to move out, it is important for them to take the opportunity to perhaps take a walk outside of the shul, to take a walk outside of the premises, to take a break, but not to move around within the confines of be it the tent or be it the sanctuary itself. What if I'm still on the fence about seating? So just to appreciate this, I know that a lot of people have many considerations, and the considerations are not simple, and family and concerns, and at the same time, just to understand that every seat is worth its weight in gold this year. And not only is it worth its weight in gold, a person can't just come in and out and everything changes, because every family's shape and size changes the seating pattern, which means that if somebody is on the fence and is really actually not interested in being at the shul, those seats and that space, not just the seats, but the 6-foot space around that is critically important to our shul and to our seating. So if there's people who are on the fence, it is I would say morally incumbent incumbent upon them to tell the shul either way or other, so that we're able to seat the many, many people in a way that's most comfortable to them. Can I bring children is a question that's being asked. Is unfortunately this year, the only children we can offer in our services are going to be those who are sitting with their parents masked the entire time. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a possibility of having strollers, of having kids around shul. We did try to coordinate by offering the hashkama minyan. The hashkama minyan will itself provide the opportunity for people to come early and switch off with spouses, or perhaps for families to organize their own pods in terms of play dates and so on. But unfortunately, we will not be having children running around this year. At this point in time, I want to just take a moment to really, really thank Doba and Chevy, who have given of their time in a way that I have seen from morning until dusk every single day. This has been a full-time job, and the amount of effort, concern, empathy in order to seat everybody is beyond imagination. Doba, should you, anything you'd like to add that I did not fully address?
Hi, everyone. We do appreciate everyone's time and patience, and as the numbers do change, we really have tried to accommodate. But as the rabbi said, it's a very, very complex puzzle. And, at this point already, each minyan happens to be almost full to capacity. There's one, but as things change, we'll let people know if they still want to change, still want to go to the, signed up for X, want to go into Y. There's the possibility, but as of now, all the minyanim are really, really very, very full.
Baruch Hashem. It really is an incredible thing to think that we have more than 3/4 of our membership being seated on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is just a tremendous, tremendous thing. David, thank you so much for everything you're doing, to Chevy, to all the individuals who are working so hard on this. What we're going to do is we're going to move into the next section, which is length of davening. This I know is on a lot of people's mind. People are wondering what's going to be happening, how long can I sit, and so on. Just to put things into context, and as I mentioned beforehand, this is the year we need to be davening longer in terms of spiritually. This is the year we ought to be davening longer, yet at the same time it is also one of those three matrices of safety. We want to ensure that there's going to be safety for people being there for a long time. So just to give an overview of what we are doing. All our minyanim, all 7 of our minyanim, are going to be starting at 8:30, except for the hashkama, which will be starting at 7 o'clock. Those 7 minyanim starting at regular time are aimed to be finished at 12:10 or 12:15 as mapped out, and the hashkama will be finished at 10:30 as we map out in terms of our times. The exact breakdowns will be emailed out shortly to the shul in terms of when to expect shofar is going to be, when laning is going to be, so people have a sense of this. So usually, just to give you an idea, usually our davening starts at 8:30, ends around 1:15. We're now about an hour shorter than we regularly on a regular minyan, and the hashkama will also be shorter. So that is in terms of that. Now, so there's a few questions. Is what will be missing? How do we get there? So this is not something that even a communal rabbi can wave their wand and do. This is something which requires asking poskim. Even something people as simple as piyutim, which people say just the piyutim. When a person does something like a mitzvah, a positive action, numerous times, it has, so to speak, the bearing upon them as a neder, as a vow. So it's something very, very not simple to be able to waive that. Which is why we did consult the poskim, and Rav Hershel Schachter wrote many responses on this particular topic. Rav Willig just came out this last week with his suggested machzor to be able to deal with these things. We try to work along those lines at the same time as trying to maintain as much of what our traditional davening is, at the same time painfully and with tears cutting out certain things that specifically this year, and I emphasize specifically this year, when you read the responses of Rav Shechter, he released one this Monday to understand the gravity of what it means to remove a piece of davening. That's something which we are going to be we have to do. So the pieces of davening which are going to be missing is that, generally speaking, some of the silent piyutim, those piyutim that will be said silently by the community between the paragraphs of the Chazaras Hashatz, some of those will be missing. Not all of them. Some of them we will be sending out a list as to what we are missing out, and what the pages are of the places that we're going to be doing. Also, there's not going to be personal mishaberachs after the aliyahs to make things move along, although we will be doing communal mishaberachs, and we're also going to be moving from one node to another, to one end to another, one nun to another, which is we're going to move from more nigun to nusach. Right? We're going to be hearing more nusach from the chazanim more than necessarily nigun. What if How will I follow if all these things are being left out? So we will be printing and emailing as part of the booklet a page-by-page reference as to where we are, so it'll be easier in the art scroll or in the Birnbaum or in the or in the interlinear where the pages are that we're going to be at, so it's a little easier to see where we're at. If people would like to, they can print these out beforehand, before Yom Tov as well. What should I be doing if I'm davening at home? That is an excellent question, and in response to that, actually, I took some time to put together a guide of what davening should look like at home. And in our very beautiful seller, which has been printed and is being mailed out shortly, will be arriving at every person's home. On page 28 is a special guide as to what davening should look like at home, which piyutim to say and how and when. So please take advantage of that. That is going to be in everybody's mailbox, and it will be emailed out shortly as well. What if I cannot handle being in shul that long? Right, so whether it be a health issue, a concern issue, being stuck in that position for so long. So just to be aware of, we did say the start time of davening is 8:30. There is HaMelech is at 8:55, which is the general speed that we usually would go at a Pesukei de Zimra. People feel uncomfortable being in shul that long, and this is really a concern to them. They may come at HaMelech. However, just remembering that you're in the middle of Pesukei de Zimra, one's not able to interrupt. So one would have to daven at home that part, come without interrupting to shul in one's talis if one's a man, and join the davening at that point in time. That would take off 25 minutes more of being in shul. If a person is really not able and not comfortable, a person may need to take breaks, or may need to leave a little early or come a little later, but Baruch Hashem, we're trying to maintain the posterity of what the davening is, while at the same time also accommodating everyone. Will the Balei Tefillah be rotating? Am I going to be able to hear different Balei Tefillah? Answer is to a certain degree, yes. We should know the Herculean effort that is involved in setting up the Balei Tefillah and the Balei Kriya, recruiting the Balei Tefillah and recruiting the Balei Kriya. We are trying to maintain some level of stasis so that the Balei Tefillah are not moving so much, because every time a Balei Tefillah moves, their family needs to move, and every time the family moves, the entire operation of seating changes for that particular base medrash. At the same time, we're trying to also rotate to create variety. So there may be a little bit of rotation, there may be a little less this year, and we hope that people can understand the incredible amount of rotating pieces that are necessary. Will there be a Devar Torah in Shul? The answer is, depends where. Hashkama will not be getting a Devar Torah, unfortunately, this year. Our satellite locations, Yilk South and Yilk West, will not be having a Devar Torah. The 5 remaining locations will have a Devar Torah in Rosh Hashanah, at least speaking about Rosh Hashanah right now. And what that means to say is that Rabbi Talbam and myself will be rotating Shachris and Musab before laning and before shofar in 2 places each day, which will ensure that 3 of those locations will get 2 Divrei Torah, 1 on the first and the second day, and 2 of the remaining locations will only get a Dvar Torah 1 of the days. That is what we're trying to work with under the circumstance. Will there be singing? Very important question. Some people are very concerned about singing. So in general, our Balei Tefillah have been advised and are moving in the direction of moving, as I mentioned beforehand, away from more nigun and more into nusach, which means the way that it is said, the cantorial way it's said. Having said that, there's going to be specific times, if it's in Kedusha or specific piyutim, that is in Asana Tokef, which is said, which is sung with the community together. They will be singing for that, but we advise, and as Dr. Glatt just sent out, Rabbi Glatt sent out just this week, people do not need shouting or spluttering. It can be quietly done in a way that everybody is also, people around us, our neighbors, feel comfortable as well. It's going to be a balance. We're not going to be mandating a zero tolerance or an absolute policy. We're going to try to maintain the middle ground, which sometimes is a little grey in this respect. When it comes to shofar, there are a lot of questions about shofar as well. How will the shofar be working this year? So the shofar this year is going to be very important. We're going to spend a lot of time on the shofar, and generally speaking, it's going to work like this. In outdoor locations, we're going to have the Baal Tokeya standing 12 feet away. So he's going to be standing a distance away from the actual tent itself, just outside of it, and doing the tekiyos there. The shofar will be unmasked. In Elul, which is a different level of chiyuv, it has been masked, or at least that was what I asked for the Gabaim to do. And on Rosh Hashanah, it's going to be unmasked and blown slightly away from the tent itself. When inside, in the 4 locations that we have inside, all those locations have an emergency exit which exits directly outside. We're going to have the Baal Tokeya standing just by that entrance, not outside, but just by the entrance. So we have airflow over there, and we've also been constructing, thanks to Marvin and our ground staff, we've been constructing 8-foot mechitzas, a sort of semicircular mechitza. You'll be able to see it's half wood, half plexiglass which will be surrounding the Balta, so it will not be necessarily having an impact in the room itself. That is the way we're going to be doing it. Will they be blowing after davening? The answer is, as we usually do, yes, but with a slight variation. We're going to, because the people who are coming after davening to hear shofar are coming specifically because they do not want to be among the crowds, we're making sure that the blowing after davening is somewhat later than the actual end of the davening, so the crowds disperse in order that the people who are coming specifically for shofar blowing can feel that they're coming, and they're going to come in a very much muted and quieter crowd. So therefore, after Hashkama, which is finishing around 10:30, we're going to have an 11 o'clock blowing in the Hashkama tent, which is the closer tent to the entrance. For the regular davenings, the davening is going to finish around 12:10, 12:15. We're going to have at 12:45. There's going to be a blowing right outside in the main tent, which is going to the one in the further end of the parking lot. And we're going to do as well at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, half an hour before the 6:30 mincha, before the crowds are arriving again, there'll be another opportunity. I know people are saying there's communities that they're blowing in the park. Parks are wonderful. You need a permit to blow in the park. It's not so simple. And our shul is pretty centrally located. We're very lucky to have a beautiful outside, and it's located to the people living in Lawrence, the people living in Cedarhurst, in either direction, which is why we're offering this opportunity. What if I can't get to shul at all for shofar blowing? So the shul sent an email. I sent out an email earlier this week. If people need shofar blowing, there are a number of incredible volunteers who are willing to walk to people's houses and blow outside. The protocol will be blowing outside, not coming into the house. But if a person is not able to even get to the shul for those after davening opportunities, please let the shul office or let myself know so that can be arranged. I want to take a moment just to thank Rabbi Teitelbaum. We spent an incredible amount of time discussing this, and with his adracha and carrying the posterity of what the shul should look like onwards, that in Metz Hashem our davening should be balancing on the one hand the tradition of what it is and should be, at the same time also the compromises that we've had to make, unfortunately, this year. Rebbe, is there anything that I left out? Is there anything that needs to be said on this particular topic?
I think that the work that you have done and the work of the seating committee has prepared us beautifully. Between now and Yom Tov, which is fully a week away, I'm sure that there will be yet more work done, but it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful Yom Tov and a meaningful Yom Tov. And I'm very, very confident that everybody, the entire congregation, is going to feel that we've begun a fantastic new year of blessing. But it's really with great thanks to you and thanks to Marvin, and huge thanks to Doba and to Shevi Ogorik. It's been just amazing. As Rabbi Trump says, every day we come to Shul and there's Doba Isaacs and Shevi Ogorik are working on seating and trying to make everyone feel that this is going to be their Yom Tov, their great Yom Tov. Tafshin Pei Aleph is going to be wonderful. I think that you've covered all of the bases, and we're going to daven with fervor. Like you said, it's a time for us to daven with even more fervor and for a sense of religiousness to come with us into the new year. Yeshikoach.
I want just to emphasize, Rebbe, and the amount of time that we spent and the time that we talked over this and went through this again and again and every option. And I really want to thank Rabbi Teitelbaum for the amount of time. It's just such a difficult thing. Every time we cut something out is painful. And this is a very painful year to be able to balance that and trying to make sure our shul is safe. And I want to thank you, Rebbe, for all of the leadership in this. And of course, Rabbi Teitelbaum, of course, will be leading as well this year, the davening, and giving the Divrei Torah more than ever this year. The more rotations, the more Divrei Torah, but Baruch Hashem.
Yirtzeh Hashem, it's going to be successful. And I think that you also have to know that each person bringing their goodwill, as you mentioned, not only about seating, but bringing their sense of let's do this together. Tzibur is not at all just a combination of people or a sum total of people. Each person brings a different and unique quality to the davening. When we all come together, each of us with goodwill and respect for each other and hopes for each other, aspirations for each other, that we should, not only meet this challenge together well, but share in great things in the year to come. If we come in with a lot of goodwill, which is what you began with, Rabbi Trump, I agree with you. That's going to be a huge measure of our success. It's going to depend upon a lot of good attitude and a lot of goodwill and a lot of a sense of we're going to make the best of this and we're going to do it together successfully.
Ezras Hashem, amen, amen, amen. I'm going to, Dr. Kellner, our president, has asked to just to address some of the security, some of the health concerns that people have directly. And Baruch Hashem, also our pediatrician, is going to take it from the next point.
First of all, I want to thank everyone. Let me start with, sorry, just a step back and people can see you, baby. Right. I just want to thank everyone, first of all, for the amount of effort that Rabbi Teitelbaum and Rabbi Trump have put into this. It has been Herculean. I can't even tell you how much I appreciate it. Let me start with the thank yous beforehand, because I'm going to be doing this for the rest of the year. Dov and Chevy, you've done an unbelievable job. I really want to thank you. It couldn't have been done without you. Marvin, Becky in the office, people don't realize how much work they have to do on a daily basis to get the daily shul to work in the middle of a pandemic. It's much worse. And now trying to get a Yom Narayim going is even worse. And the people who have not been named yet, who have done an unbelievable job, and I do want to name them and thank them, Shalom Huberfeld, Robert Kantowitz, Morty Schreck, and Bruce Mell have worked so hard to put together the daveners, the Baltokeas, and just to make our davening so much more meaningful to us. And I want to thank everyone. Now just talk about security and health. Security. We have 8 locations, but they're on 3 different premises. We are going to have a police presence at every single location. We have paid for Bob and his detectives to be at each one. I do want to say a thank you to Mark Siklick, who has reached out to the Nassau County Police Department and has increased patrols at our outside sites, that they will be going there regularly. One of the parts for security is that we have to keep to your minyan and no wandering. That means not going to between each of the minions, and it's very, very important for that. Health. One of the problems we've seen is the uptick in the amount of COVID that has occurred in Nassau County and other certain communities. To address that problem, we have discussed and we have sent out numerous emails from the Shul. It is even more important now with the Yom Narayim. There are people, as Rabbi Trump has mentioned, who are coming to Shul for the first time, who are at higher risk, who feel they have to come. For that reason, if you are under quarantine, and that has been posted by so many different people, quarantine means that if you've been exposed to anyone with COVID, you come from a state that is, by New York State standards, in quarantine. If you have been exposed and have been tested but have not gotten the test back yet, you are now in quarantine till it comes back. You cannot come to Shul. Not with a mask, not with gloves, you cannot come to Shul. That is it. That's a statement that we must make, and that's what we're going to enforce. Just to tell everyone, because there's been a lot of questions to me, the United States, the CDC has not made quarantine on anyone traveling from outside the country except for certain countries. Mostly the ones that we deal with are EU, coming from the European Union. Israel is not on quarantine when they come back from Israel. So I just want to allay anyone's fear. If you think someone's coming back from Israel, that is not an issue. As Rabbi, one of the other parts for health and for everyone else is, one of the things we've learned about with children is that children are mostly asymptomatic. They don't stay in their place. If they can't sit in their seat and keep a mask on, they should not, and they cannot come to Shul. For that reason, we're not having strollers and no wandering. If your child needs to go out for walks, prefer they do not, and if they need to do it multiple times, they shouldn't be coming to Shul. And for these reasons, that is why we are limiting the people who are in Shul are people who can actually sit, wear a mask the entire time. We are going to try to make this Yom Narayim as meaningful and as wonderful as it possibly can be. We ask your indulgence, and we really wish everyone Kivah Chatima Tova.
I wanted to just apologize. We actually disabled the chat feature on this particular room because this particular room is used for shirim. So I greatly apologize for that for that particular issue. We do want to hear questions, but just before getting there, I just want to echo it. I really apologize for not mentioning it beforehand. Is our original committee, whether it be Shalom Huberfeld, whether it be Morty Schreck, whether it be Bob Kantowitz, whether it be Alan Wexelbaum, the people who are really working really hard on the Ballet Kriya, Ballet Tzkiya, the training session of the new Ballet Tzkiyas, the new Ballet Tefillah is really incredible to watch, and it's beautiful to see it starting to come together. Last question that I want to do, just deal with, and then perhaps we'll open up to some audible questions, because it looks like the written questions are not possible right now. And that is how can we as a community help? And that's what Dr. Steve was just saying a moment ago. And that is number one, is understanding the compromise that we are all making is very important for all of us. Number two, is also helping with energy and finances. Just to appreciate this, as you can imagine, setting up tents and all this equipment is something which is bleeding away money. The Yom Noraim has cost an incredible amount of money, and we know that this is a really important time, and it's a difficult time for people, but at the same time we appreciate everybody's support, whether it be the energy they're giving or the money they're giving to enable this to continue. Also, at this point in time, we are still lacking a number of Gaboim. Dr. Huberfeld had asked me to mention, and I think it's important to know, that there are a number of Gaboim we still need in each of those different locations, which is necessary, and that would be a great service which is rendered. Be'ez Hashem, in the spirit of compromise, in the spirit of being able to work together at a difficult time, we should really have a year for us as a community, for us individually, and for us as a nation, and for us as humanity. Be'ez Hashem, Yeshuas and Nechamos. At this point in time, being as there is the chat option is not available, if there are specific questions which are available, we'll spend just a few minutes, but please try to keep them on target, and specifically about not about specific situations, because questions are relevant which have been overlooked in this particular presentation.
Rabbi?
Hi.
It's Doba. I just want to make one more comment that you touched upon, but I just want to reiterate, is that yes, we have a lot more minyanim, but that means that there's a lot more to do. So Marvin, as you have said, has worked tirelessly already for weeks. He anticipated a lot of this, and in additional, the fact that you have more minyanim and minyanim outside, we've had to buy additional chairs. Then think about it's not just manual power, but it's also the concept of making sure that everything is there and ready for next week. As much as possible. So, he thought of even the concept of creating that. We said every chair outdoors will be tagged. Again, an enormous amount of work, but this is the foresight that I want to tell that Marvin had in advance to foresee that people are going to need to know where they're sitting, how they're sitting. And there is a lot of care, and I'm very appreciative that I'm part of this community in which everybody does care about making sure everybody will feel together, part of the community, part of our shul.
Thank you, Zalman. Thank you. Are there any questions people would like to address in this forum, which are for public forum?
Rabbi, this is Jeremy.
Hi,
Real
Jeremy.
quick. Thank
Jeremy,
you.
Are you not glad that you're not president for this? No,
Not it. But I just wanted to ask, what is the best way for people to volunteer over the next week? Obviously, everyone is well-intentioned. Who should people reach out to? Whether it's tagging seats or rolling Sifrei Torah. I mean, I know the undertaking is huge. What's the best way for volunteers to be coordinated?
That's an excellent question. So there's a lot of different pieces and a lot of different teams. So on the seating side of things, the people like to work with the logistics of that's Doba and Chevy. People like to work on the ritual side of things. Heading that is Shalom Huberfeld, Morty Schreck, and Bob Kandowitz. But under that is also Alan Wexelbaum is working with the Ballet Kriya, and Shalom is working with the Ballet Tzkiya. So that's on that side. Logistically speaking, when it comes to things like even bringing chairs or moving things around or putting labels or stuffing envelopes, there's a lot of things that are going on in the next week. It would be best to reach the office, either Marvin or Becky, and they can help triage. It's an excellent question. Thank you. Any further questions, folks?
Just a comment, I think Uri Luzar wants to say something, but he's muted. I also will ask to give forbearance to the Gaboim, many of whom are volunteering and doing this for the first time, if you're, there's a particular psicha or a kibbutz that you've had in particular years, there'll be, because there are more minyanim, there'll be people who will be having aliyahs on Rosh Hashanah for the first time. So, but on the other hand, you may not get what you had in previous years. We will do the very best we can to accommodate. Don't hesitate to, if you have a particular request on something, please reach out.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
It's actually not a question, but it's actually a comment to let the people know in the shul, because I just got confirmation this evening, which I had mentioned to the Rabbanan, that for Yom Kippur, that parking will be allowed in the municipal parking lot this year, and they should not be worried about getting tickets.
That's incredible. So that's the one just up the road on Spruce.
Up the roads, people shouldn't worry. They could park up the road at the meters, and there will not be tickets. It can't go out from the shul because they have to do a separation from church and state, but they told me to let people know.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. That will just make it easier for people who perhaps want to have one less travel on the way in and on the way out. That might make a big difference in terms of people's planning. And I assume that means not the permit area, the permit spots, but the metered spots. Okay, excellent. That's fantastic. Thank you for putting in that effort. That's, again, just an incredible example of going the extra mile for the Kehillah as well. Any further questions, or perhaps we will end it at this point? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, really thank you everybody for taking the time, for being here. We look forward to seeing everybody. We look forward to davening with everybody, and we look forward to a year together in good health, in nachas, and in growth together. Thank you so much for everybody for being part, for caring, and for being part of this incredible community and mishpacha. And look out, Be'ezras Hashem, next week for our incredible seller, which has included numerous comments and articles from our own B'nai Kehillah, which is being printed and distributed in this coming week. Have a ksiva v'chasima tova.